We have some Commanders breaking news here on a Tuesday as the Commanders are signing wide receiver Robbie Chosen to their practice squad. Chosen is known as a pretty speedy wide receiver that I think could be a sneaky good signing for the Washington Commanders. Before we talk about Robbie and what he brings to this Commanders team, make sure you guys click that subscribe button because this is exactly why you subscribe to the channel. We give you guys breaking news updates every single time there is a breaking story for the Washington Commanders, whether that's a new signing, whether that's a trade at the deadline, whether that's a big-time injury update. We're going to get you guys a video every time breaking news happens for the Washington Commanders happens this year, so make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss a video. So it was reported by Adam Schefter from ESPN moments ago saying, veteran NFL wide receiver Robbie Chosen is signing with the Washington Commanders practice squad. And, of course, he's being added to the practice squad, but I think the intention here is for him to eventually get moved to the active roster if things go well, getting him ramped up over the next few weeks. You can take a look at the newest Commander here, Robbie Chosen. He's 32 years old. He's got some really good height, 6'3", but pretty slender for that height at just 185 pounds. He's a favorite among the Kyle Shanahan circle. First he goes to Miami, then he goes to San Francisco for the preseason this year, and now Adam Peters, the former San Francisco 49er assistant GM, picks him up here in Washington. He also has some ties to Cliff Kingsbury. Now, it is worth noting that Robbie has had some legal troubles in some recent years, which have kind of prevented him from getting on the field at times. But Chosen is known as a speedy vertical threat. This is what he is known as. All right, he's not the biggest guy in the world. He's not going to be a contested catch ball winner or anything like that, or at least not consistently. What he does is he gets open and he can win down the field if you give him a free access and you don't press him. So he's certainly someone that I think fits the mold of what the Commanders kind of need right now. They need somebody that can get open, somebody that can beat man coverage, and I think Chosen is the type of guy that can provide some help in that area. And then he also has a tie back to Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff actually traded for him back in 2022, his final season. There with the Arizona Cardinals, and, you know, it's definitely an interesting situation, right? Because Robbie, you know, you trade for him, he gets there, he has some success there in Arizona, and obviously Cliff still feels a certain way about him because he certainly, you know, I'm guessing, checked off on this move by Adam Peters and the Commanders to bring Robbie Chosen in here to bolster this wide receiver room. You guys can take a look at some of the recent career stats. Last year was not good with the Miami Dolphins. He was like their wide receiver 4 in an offense that really only played 2 wide receivers, and then Odell Beckham Jr. Was ahead of him as the wide receiver 3 in Miami last year, so he didn't really get on the field all that much. Then in 2023, he also didn't play much. Once again, he kind of got buried in that offense, but he did put up over 126 yards. You know, he had a really long touchdown, which led to an average of 31.5 yards per reception. But then 2022, his last kind of full season, you know, kind of playing a full workload, had 282 yards. He averaged over 14 yards per reception and had a touchdown. And then in Carolina in 2021 was the last time he's gotten over 500 yards and still almost averaging a first down per reception, and he had 5 tuds that year. You guys can take a look at his career PFF grading. We know on this channel, we say it every single time we talk about PFF grades. They're not gospel, but it is a good tool to see the trajectory a player has gone down throughout the course of his career. And earlier on in his career, on those grades on the left, pretty darn good. You know, he comes in as a UDFA. That's a really speedy vertical threat, has some good seasons, and then you know, he starts to fall off a little bit on the right side there where he's been on a bunch of new teams, all this different stuff, and now he finds his way onto the Washington Commanders. But I thought Robbie Chosen actually played pretty decently during the preseason this year for the San Francisco 49ers. Now, obviously, they didn't keep him around, but 9 catches for 117 yards for an average of 13 yards per catch. I was watching his film right before getting on camera with you guys here, and I was pleasantly surprised with the way that he still moves. So at 32 years old, he's still a pretty darn good athlete. He can move, he can cut, and he can still separate. I know he was going up against backups a lot in those preseason games, but he's at least a serviceable wide receiver that still has his legs with him. that I'm excited to see what he can do over the next few weeks with the Washington Commanders. So coming up here, I got my thoughts on this signing, where I think he fits in this rotation, whether or not he plays this week versus the Los Angeles Chargers. I'll answer those questions here in just a moment. But first, let me know down there in the comment section. Grade this signing, A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, I'm going to tell you about our sponsor today at PrizePicks. While I'm telling you about our sponsor here, give me an A, B, C, D, or F for the signing of Robbie Chosen. And with that, let's have a word from our sponsor here today at PrizePicks. And you and I, we both make decisions every single day. But not all those decisions get you paid. But on PrizePicks, being right with your decisions can actually get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on PrizePicks, where it's good to be right. Football season is finally here, and you better believe I'll be getting my PrizePicks lineups in all season long. PrizePicks is simple to play. You just pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections, and if you get your picks right, you could cash in. PrizePicks also puts their users first, so all withdrawals are fast, safe, and secure. PrizePicks also offers Venmo, Apple Pay, MasterCard, and more for quick and easy deposits into your account this football season. And a new feature from PrizePicks that is new this year that I absolutely love is injury reboots. If one of your players leaves the game in the first half and doesn't return, PrizePicks will not count that as a loss. So for this weekend's action between the Commanders and the Los Angeles Chargers, I'm taking the more on passing yards for Justin Herbert because, let's face it, the Commanders' passing defense stinks right now. I'm taking the more on receiving yards for Quentin Johnston. He's been pretty explosive this year. I'm taking the more on Zach Ertz receiving yards. I'm expecting Jaden Daniels to be back this week, and Zach Ertz is one of his favorite targets. Expect him to be around somewhere in 50 to 75 yard range this week. So download the app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup on the PrizePicks app today. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Now, personally, guys, I think that this could be a very sneaky good signing for the Washington Commanders, all right? I know for a fact Adam Peters has communication with the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins organizations because he has connections to those organizations, obviously being formerly with the 49ers. And, you know that they did their homework on Robbie Chosen before making this move. I think that, Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, all these guys, they probably gave some good stuff to Adam Peters saying, hey, man, it just wasn't a great fit for us, but for you, he's still a serviceable player. And then when they saw the tape from the preseason that I just saw where he's getting open and he's running good routes and he's separating a little bit, the Commanders are like, man, we need some of that on this football team right now. So I think that's kind of the way that this thing kind of happened. And with injuries to Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, who knows how long those guys are going to be out, I think that having a guy like Robbie Chosen that can put a little bit of fear in opposing defenses in terms of getting open to man-to-man, that has been an issue for this Commanders receiving core to start the season, is that they're not separating versus man. Robbie Chosen can maybe lure these defenses to play a little bit more zone coverage in the weeks to come. But personally, guys, I would have gone with Deontay Johnson. That was my number one free agency target. He was on track to put up over 800 yards receiving last year in Carolina before he got traded. Then he goes to a bunch of different spots that he just can't stick with. But Deontay is a really good route runner. He separates versus man. He's got a long track record of that, and he's not like ancient in terms of age. So, yes, I would have preferred Deontay Johnson. I might have even preferred Odell Beckham Jr. to Robbie Chosen just because Robbie hasn't really done anything in the league for multiple years here at this point. But with that said, I think he still has his legs with him, and I think that's part of the reason why the Commanders chose to bring in Robbie over Deontay Johnson, over Odell Beckham Jr., both guys who are kind of regressing in their careers at this point. Robbie can still move, and I think that, that was a big contributing factor here to the Commanders wanting to bring him in. And even when Noah Brown gets back healthy, even when Scary Terry gets back healthy, Robbie can be like a wide receiver 4 that can be a rotation piece that can get open, that can run deep routes. If there's an opportunity to throw deep to him, Jaden Daniels can throw it to him down the field. I like this signing for the Washington Commanders. Obviously, he still needs to prove himself big time because he hasn't done much in the league lately, so I'll give it a B. It's not going to be like life-changing type of move here, guys, but for what it is, bringing in a receiver that can maybe help you out in the short term, while some of these injuries kind of get sorted out for the Washington Commanders, and then also somebody that can rotate in as kind of a deep threat and a route runner. I think is something that will be good for the Washington Commanders this season. But what I'll say here, guys, is don't expect him to play this week versus the Chargers unless they're really desperate. Usually it takes at least 2 weeks to get a wide receiver ramped up, especially for kind of a complex offense like Cliff Kingsbury runs. I would say it's going to take him at least this week and next week to get ramped up for him to be able to develop a level of trust to trust him out there on an NFL playing field in a regular season game. So I wouldn't expect him to see him out there this weekend unless the Commanders are really super desperate to get him out there. But hopefully Terry and Noah can get back this week, all right? It sounds a little bit optimistic, at least in the early week comments from Dan Quinn, that these two could potentially return to action this week. I will say the Terry McLaurin injury kind of concerns me a little bit. Hip flexor stuff, it can be kind of tricky. And then Noah Brown's been out multiple weeks with a groin, and groin injuries can linger as well. So hopefully we can get at least one of those two back. Hopefully you can get them both back, but I wouldn't expect to see Mr. Robbie Chosen this week versus the Chargers. But the guy that we could potentially see starting at strong safety for this team is Darnell Savage. Jeremy Reeves, I did not think had a great game versus the Atlanta Falcons as this team starting strong safety. They brought in Darnell Savage for a reason last week. Took him a week to get ramped up, but now he should be 100% ready to go for this Chargers game. Really, this Commanders secondary needs a jolt of positivity after a really slow start to this season. So who do you think is going to be the bigger impact this year? Do you think it's going to be Darnell Savage type DS, or do you think it's going to be Robbie Chosen type RC? Down there in the comment section. I think right now, because he has a bigger role, it's going to be Darnell Savage. I think Robbie Chosen at best is going to be like a replacement level starter or like replacement piece or like a rotational piece. Darnell Savage might be your starting strong safety the rest of the year. So Savage certainly has the more potential to be the bigger impact, but let me know what you guys think down there in the comment section. And that'll be it for today's edition of the Commanders Report by Chat Sports. Thank you guys so much for joining me here with our breaking news edition of the show. And again, make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss any of our breaking news videos all throughout the 2025 season.